some force comes up, like a person or the ground, and stabilizes them, they're just all over the place. So you understand, balance is the ability to control equilibrium. So with vertigo, that ability is taken away from you. Equilibrium, all forces are equal, and stability is the ability of the body, or whatever. You know, let's say this is leaning on its side, so gravity would make it fall over. But if I take Rachel's hand and I hold it here, then it's not going to fall over. Okay, so we're giving it stability. We're adding something in there to cause stability. Sorry, I hope I didn't make it fizzy. All right, center of gravity. The midpoint or center of the weight of a body or object. So if I were to take a pencil and give it to Rachel and say, balance that on one finger. She is going to take a moment and find the midpoint. There you go, perfect. So it's now balancing on one finger. So she's found the midpoint of that object. And it isn't necessarily in the center, because this pen has a cap. So it's going to be heavier on one side than the other. So that's why when they say midpoint or center, the midpoint isn't always the center. Does that make sense? Because sometimes it has to adjust to accommodate for weight change. Let's see, if there's no anatomic center of gravity, it depends on the arrangement of body segments and it changes with every movement. So what they're saying is when we talk about center of gravity, there really is no such thing applying to the human body because we're constantly moving and constantly adjusting. Even when we sleep to a point, our muscles move and adjust. I mean, you think about it. Who here wakes up in the exact same position they fell asleep in? I sometimes do when I'm really tired. Yeah, I know. But so we even move in our sleep. So every time we shift, all the muscles in our bodies are making these minute little adjustments all day long. Every time you move your head, every time, I mean, think about it. It kind of makes you a little crazy if you think about it too much because you're just never at rest, never. When you're sleeping, your eyes are moving, when you're in REM sleep. So there really is no true center of gravity because every little change impacts you. A person is balanced when his or her center of gravity falls within the base of support. What does that mean? Think about that. So you're balanced. Think about when you're working out, all right? And you are you're standing, we're going to do a standing demonstration. So stand up for me. So, and you are doing one-armed bicep curls. Okay, so what is your base of support? Right, your legs. So are you going to stand like this and do one-arm curls? You're going to stand with your legs slightly apart to give yourself more stability, all right? And if you were lifting a really heavy weight, which isn't healthy, but let's say you are, you're going to even widen your stance more, or you're going to fall over, all right? So when you're balanced, you have to have, we refer to this as your center of gravity, but by picking up a weight, my center of gravity is going to shift. So I have to widen my base of support, because everybody stand up real quick. All right, so, and what I'm going to have everybody stand with your feet together. And then I want you, what you're going to kind of do is like stick your hip out, and I want you to move your center of gravity, but stand upright. You can't do it. So if you take your hip and you move your hip out like this, you'll reach a point where you can't stand upright. So the only way you can stand upright, continue to stand upright, is to widen your stance. Then you can now widen your feet. Now stick your hip out. You can stick your hip way out. You're not going to fall over because your center of gravity is staying within that stance. Got that? Good. All right. So a person is balanced in direct proportion to the size of the base of support. That's what we were just demonstrating. A person is balanced depending on his or her weight. And a person's balance depends on the height of the center, of gravity. That should say center of, not center or. So if you think about it, do you think a taller person is less or more stable when they're standing? Less stable, that's right. Because their center of gravity is further away. That's why, like, wrestlers and stuff are not tall. They're stocky, widely built guys and girls. So because they're being closer to the ground, it's a lot harder to take them off their feet. Start looking around at sports, and if vertical is important, like in basketball, you're going to see height. But if staying on your feet and being stable is really important, you're going to get shorter, wider, stockier builds. A person's balance depends on where his or her center of gravity is in relation to the base of support. We talked about that. These are the principles of balance. In anticipation, that's why when you're doing things, and you may have come across this in doing exercise, when you're doing things to improve your balance, what you're constantly doing is challenging with your center of gravity. So like a very common exercise for balance is to lift a leg, touch the floor, and come back up without losing your balance. And you just do that. And so what you're doing is you are strengthening the muscles that are working at maintaining balance when you're shifting your center of gravity all over the place. In anticipation of an oncoming force, one may increase stability by increasing the size of the base. You've seen that before, right? In football, what do they do when they're getting ready in a lineup? What's the stance they take, Josh?
3-point or 4-point.
Can you show us, please? Good. All right. So he's got his legs spread wide, arm out in front. So they become a tripod. Now, why do you think they do that? They've widened their stance. They've shifted their weight forward so that when that force comes in and hits them dead on, they can stay upright. So it's the difference between, here, stand up for me, Becca. And I'm going to come and push you over, and I want you to prepare yourself for it. And let's move the chair because I don't want to get hurt. So don't let me push you over. Okay? Now step back too. See, she's leaning forward. She's widening that, and so now I can't. All right, now just hold your feet together. I promise I won't let you fall. Okay? So, what do you say? You're really trusting. Yeah. All right. So let's do one more example. Stand up for me. All right. It's okay, Pepper. Yeah, I don't want him to get scared. All right. So I'm going to try to push you down into the ground. Okay? I'm going to try to push you down into the ground, and you resist me. Okay? All right, so again, she just automatically stands with wide stance. Now, if she stands with her feet together, it becomes harder. I still can't really do it because she's locking her knees for me, but it's easier. I can catch her off guard better. So that's an automatic thing, is to increase the size of the base. A person may enhance equilibrium by increasing friction. Okay, so what would be an example of that? Increasing friction to improve your equilibrium.
Cleats, perhaps.
Cleats, sure. Rough-soled shoes, or even something as simple as where if you're wearing slippery clothes and you might slide. For example, we don't have blank wall space anymore. If I'm wearing something really slippery and I'm going to slide down to a seated position, it's going to be harder for me to hold this than if I were wearing something that allowed me to kind of have more friction against the wall. Okay? I would get fatigued more. And rotation around an axis is easier to balance. So that's kind of the example of the pen. On the finger is the axis, so rotation around the axis allows you...
Even in that sense, I guess, like a top that's rotating around.
Yes, exactly. Very
fall.
good. So that's another great example. So when you're spinning a top and you've got that kind of rotation going, it's going to stand upright for a while anyway, until it slows and the rotation stops, and then it falls over. Thank you. That's a great example. This is a little seesaw illustration of the principles of balance. We all know how a seesaw works? Did anyone ever not play on a seesaw when they were a kid? I'm just curious. I didn't know if they'd become passe at a certain point, but I played it. They still have seesaws?
Yeah,
They're
they're
not
not
the same.
well,
They're different.
Sometimes.
Are they like
Rubber ones,
safety
yeah.
now?
Yeah.
They're like, yes.
They're not like the
'Cause
wooden.
I don't care if you put my soul
Jump
in
down
it,
in
it is
the
not safe.
I swear the
We wait the same.
equipment that we played on when I was a kid, you could get seriously hurt.
Yeah.
My mom, when she was a kid, they had this seesaw that was basically a really long board.
Yeah.
And my mom got this really bad feeling. She didn't like, it was like 6 of her cousins on one side and 6 of her cousins on the other. My mom got a real bad feeling, so her and one of her close cousins switched places. And when they went down, a screw was taken out the ground and went into her cousin where she was originally sitting.
Oh my God. So yeah, and I'm thinking about, remember I don't think they even make these anymore, the merry-go-rounds? And you would like lay down in the middle, and your
They
friends
have
would spin you
those.
around and then you throw up, it was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, they still have those. They still have
Those
those
are
at
great.
playgrounds.
All right, so posture. Postural muscles help us maintain our upright position in gravity. Without posture and the muscles that maintain our posture, we would be puddles on the floor, so essentially. And they give sort of an example here just of the fact that when you're standing upright, you're in a balanced position. The minute you start to lean forward, muscles are having to adjust because you are off balance. We talked about a long time ago, Katie and Mandy and I were doing a little exercise in assessing, and this is going to be our exercise for today as well. When you assess posture, basically what you're doing is you're working very hard to detect postural imbalance. In a perfect world, then what they have up on the board here, Rachel, is a picture of a guy who's like the perfect specimen, and there's a plumb line. What's a plumb line?
One of those little anchors with the.
It's a weighted line hanging from the ceiling. So it's going to give you
This,
a perfect up and down. Like what?
like this.
Exactly. Like what is, if you look on the skeletal system, they have like a hook over his head and then a weight down on the bottom. It looks like an arrow. So you can see how the human skeleton lines up. And it like dissects your head in half, goes down the front of your cervical vertebrae, goes right down your arm, splits your pelvis in half. I mean, you can see how we're designed to have that really nice center of gravity. Well, when you are doing a postural assessment, one of the things you're looking at is how does this individual fall outside of that plumb line? And we all do it because we all live and work and do things that aren't perfect for our bodies. And the most common thing you'll see these days are shoulders rounded forward or chins jutting forward. Those are very common because of the time people spend looking at computers and driving cars, all of that. So a lateral view, and what is lateral, Josh?
Side.
Good, so a side view, the plumb line is in front of the lateral malleolus. What's the malleolus, Katie? I was waiting to see if a fly would go in there or something. Malleolus?
Is that your ankle?
Ankle, good. So it's in front of the lateral malleolus, and anterior and